Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by expert pundit, trainer, former pro champion as well, Gary Logan. Gary, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm very good. Glad the sun's
Sun's out.
shining, bit of
Nice.
warmth. I
Oh,
think it all ends on Thursday. I think apparently it
that's
goes back
crazy,
towards
isn't it?
winter, but
I know. I've only just got my golf clubs out, and now they're going to shut us down here. The weather's going to shut us down.
at least it's
Crazy.
not lockdown shutting us down. At least you can get back out on
Yeah,
the golf course at the moment. So that's
yeah.
good.
Tell you, honestly, it was so nice yesterday. I went and played some holes, and it was bliss. It was bliss.
Well, I'm glad. And someone else who's having a good time at the moment, presumably, is Dillian Whyte. Kind of
Yeah.
clumsy segue aside, he had a brilliant revenge win over Alexander Povetkin on Saturday night in Gibraltar. What did you make of it? 'Cause a lot of people since have talked about the condition of Povetkin and how
Mm,
prepared he was for the fight, given his battles with COVID. But Whyte
mm.
did everything right by the looks of things.
And that's what I have to say. He didn't meet the best Povetkin. He didn't look at the weigh-in. I was a bit worried when I saw him at the weigh-in. But the fact is, Dillian prepared himself to the best he could, and that's all that matters. Winners write history. It doesn't say now KO4 or KO5 Dillian Whyte, but in an asterisk, Povetkin wasn't in the best shape and had COVID previously.
Sure.
It just says the result is the result, and winners write history. And Dillian can talk about how well the camp went and how well they executed their game plan, and it really did look like they had a game plan and they stuck to it. Even though he was catching Povetkin, he was doing it all at range. It wasn't that close quarter stuff that they did in the first fight. Because you got to remember in the first fight, Dillian was winning and he dropped Povetkin a couple of times. Povetkin was landing an awful lot of body shots. There was a lot of swapping of shots going on, even though Dillian normally get the upper hand in most of the exchanges. There was a lot of Povetkin landing well and landing successfully. And, at any weight, if you're getting hit to the body to the level that Dillian's getting hit with, then obviously it's going to have an effect. And I think that did have an effect on that shot to the head, because Dillian had got so used to him dipping and going to his body, he didn't expect that uppercut that flashed through and did for him in the first fight. So, in the return now, his tactics were brilliant. He's half stepping there. I tweeted it as well. I noticed it quite early in the fight. He was keeping him long and half stepping. Every time Povetkin went low and started to roll underneath him, Dillian would just take that sensible little half step back. And Povetkin was missing wildly, and Dillian was allowed to counter really successfully. So, hats off to Zav Miller and Harold Knight for getting the right game plan and getting it through to Dillian, because I know Dillian. I know him well. And he's a close quarters man. He loves living up to being the body snatcher. And to be the body snatcher, you've got to get close to people all the time. And I always said for this fight, I didn't think that was the case. I didn't think he needed to be that close to Povetkin,
How significant do you think the addition of Harold Knight to the training team was? Because White's ring IQ and his composure in the ring seemed to be much improved.
Yeah, well, Harold's he's a no nonsense coach. That he's always had that aura. He's always had that aura, like, if you're gonna work with me, you're gonna listen. Because Harold didn't need to do this. He didn't need to come on board. He's doing his own thing, and he's probably gonna say, well, what do you want to achieve out of this? If you want somebody that you tell me what you want to do, then that's not going to work. I know how to create world champions, and he's been part of one of history's greatest ever heavyweight champions in Lennox Lewis, and he knows what made Lennox Lewis successful. And I think Dillian realizes that he knows that he needed somebody that's been there. No disrespect to Zav, somebody that's been at the upper end, been at the top. There's no upper end. He's been at the top, coached one of the history's best heavyweights in Lennox Lewis, and he knows how to get the best out of. He knows what attributes are necessary for you to become a world champion, or at least a threat to being a world champion. And so getting once I saw he got Harold Knight on board, I was like, yeah, this guy this is the icing on the cake, man. You've got Zav and Zav's knowledge, and Zav's knowledge is extensive. He's been around a lot of good fighters. He's coached a lot of good fighters, as we saw the other night in Yusuf Kumari, who I'm a big fan of. And now, he deserves his shot with Dillian, but obviously, Adam Booth once said to me, there's training fighters and there's training heavyweights. Yeah. And that's a whole different dinosaur. They're the they're the apex predators, and they are a little bit difficult to handle, you know. And I think Zav will have got a lot of what he needs to get across through to Dillian, but How will definitely have got it across that you need to have a world-class jab. You need to be able to establish punching at long range as well as short range, at heavyweight. Because let's face facts, if you've got a really good jab at heavyweight, you're going to land it, because not a lot of heavyweights have got great head movement. True. So logically, why not work to having a good jab and a good backhand? Listen, it worked for Klitschko. Klitschko's dominant for the best part of a decade, both of them, just with throwing long, straight shots. Every now and again they threw a hook around the side because they'd been setting it up so well with their long shots. We saw it time and time again with Vladimir in his prime. He'd keep banging people long, all of a sudden he'd bring that hook around the side because they were so used to them getting banged long, they're used to looking for those long shots, So, I think Harold's a great addition.
And for you, having got the revenge over Povetkin, is Dillian Whyte once again top 4 heavyweights in the world, top 3 even, maybe surpassing Wilder at this point?
That's a really interesting question. I think he has to be, simply on his body of work. His body of work since AJ has been amazing. He's beaten so many threats, not so much world ranked guys. He's beaten threats. Lucas Brown had a good couple of knockout victories. Rivas had a couple of knockout victories. Parker was a former world champion. His record speaks for itself. He's a hard-working guy, and if Dillian could do it, he'd fight every 3 months. So right now with activity as well, he's ahead of Wilder. Wilder needs Dillian, and it sounds like that's something that could well happen, because the only problem with Dillian is that, for Dillian rather, is that he's got to wait, isn't he? I mean, those two guys, Fury and Joshua, they got a big pot of money to share out between them. God willing. I mean, I think if that's another point. If Fury dominates Joshua in the first fight, which a lot of people think could happen, then how do you sell a second fight? True. But if the fight's close or Joshua wins, then the second fight sells itself. If so, look at that scenario. If the 2 fights do happen, what are we looking at now? You've got to be looking mid 22 before they do the second fight. Maybe early spring. Maybe. Okay. Yeah? Maybe. If they do, that still puts Dillian fighting for a world title towards the end of 22. Yeah. Yeah. Dillian goes nuts if he hasn't got a fight mentioned in 2 weeks. So, but they'll say to him, right, you want to fight? Well, you can't fight a bum, Dillian. The days of fighting 8-rounders and 10-rounders when you're not top of the bill, those days are gone. The days of Roberto Duran fighting 30-odd non-title fights, even when he was a world lightweight champion, those days are gone now. So they're going to say, right, what? You want to fight? Oh, well, that means you've got to fight another threat. You've got to fight another world-ranked guy, And that's where he needs to be careful. So, in answer to your question, he's going to have to wait.
What would you like to see him do in terms of opponents? Because like you say, he's topping Sky Sports box office bills, pay-per-view bills. So he needs to fight good fighters. But at the same time, he doesn't want to be known once his career's over as the best British fighter to never fight for a world title. So what does he do? Yeah.
And every time he fights these dangerous guys, it's one fight where you say, well, that could put him right out the picture. Yeah. So it's a tough one, because he's got a work ethic that a lot of the heavyweights other than AJ haven't got. They're the only 2 fighters with that. And I don't know about Filip Hrgović, because he's the elephant in the room nobody likes to mention, isn't he? Hrgović, and I'd rather not talk about him because he's dangerous. He's fighting Michael Hunter next anyway, so we'll soon see.
The IBF mandatory, whoever wins that.
So it's a tough one, for Dillian, because he's just got to sit and be patient, but he just doesn't do sitting and being patient well. It really is. Any other fighter, you'd say, you could legitimately sit them down as their manager and say, bro, this is the safest way to go about this. Let's just sit, hold tight. If you want to go away to the States and do a little 8-rounder and that for no money and against a nice little ticking over opponent, we can do that. But if you want what you've earned the other night in pay-per-view, then you're going to have to take a punt. And right now, with tens of millions potentially on the table, you know, because if you do a highlight reel now of Dillian's last few victories, that's an exciting highlight reel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's exciting. It sells itself. It sells itself to the American fan, which is what you need to get. So it's a case of him being patient, and I just don't know how well he does that.
It's not just money as well, because obviously with that matchroom model, the headliners kind of owns the show, if you like, and it enables Dillian to bring a lot of his fighters that he manages onto the card. Like, obviously, you mentioned Yusuf Kamari, Fabio Wardley is another one who was on the bill on Saturday night. What happens to those fighters if Dillian decides to go and take an 8-rounder on an undercard or in the States?
Yeah, well, all he can do is say, right, we've got a band of guys. Can we help these guys out? That's a hard sell. That's a very hard sell. You know, he'll have to do well. We're going into dangerous territory whereby, you know, Dillian being a manager means that he's headlining the matchroom show. So that means his fighters are on a big show. Should that always be the case? These guys he's got are good fighters. Yeah. And, you know, without me telling Dillian how to do his job as a manager now, say he gets injured. Say he got injured for a year. Does that mean those guys don't fight?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You got to go out and do your job as a manager. Go and get your guy fights. You know, because, and I think we also need to remember, anytime Gary Logan or a Dillian Whyte or an Adam Booth manage a fighter, we are working for them. Yeah, ideally, we'd like to be saying we're working with them, but you are working for them because your job is to go to them and say, right, I've gone to this promoter. These are the fights that he's recommended. These are the fights he's putting forward for a pay-per-view bill. This is who I think we should fight. What do you think? And the final decision should come down to the fighter.
Sure. Yeah.
So like now, these guys are now got to go to Dillian and say, well, bro, you're heavyweight. You only fight once every 6 months. Does that mean we've got to wait that long? Do you know what I mean? It don't work. It just doesn't work like that. You know, when you think of it logically, they can't just wait until Dillian fights. I mean, it's great that they did. It was great. It was they were a tribe. You know what I mean? It's like that. I was on the podcast yesterday, and they were talking about, Adam Scott was talking about when they walked down the hallway and Dillian had his Marvin Hagler dressing gown, and he had all the crew behind him, and it did look awesome. You know, they were a tribe, and it's so good when you're part of a tribe. I can imagine that's what's happening with Eddie Reynoso when he's got Ryan Garcia and Andy Ruiz in the gym at the same time, and Oscar Wilder. It must be just immense. And I get a little buzz out of that, you know, when I've got my little crew here, you know, Dion Juma and Dino Richardson, and now we've got another young fella, Tommy, and that. So, yeah, so I can imagine, but, you know, in answer to your question, waiting that long for you to fight, you know, these guys need to be, for them to get better at their careers and for them to get anywhere, they've got to be out at least 4 times a year, at least 4. It's changed so much. I was saying it yesterday on another podcast. I was like, I've had, in my first season alone with Mickey Duff, I had 12 bouts. It's like about a month. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I box twice a month. You know, it's just amazing. I turned pro October 88. By August 89, I was boxing in Florida on Lloyd Hannigan's undercard, you know? So, great times.
I was going to say, times have changed.
Great time.
Last question before I let you go. If you were a betting man, Dillian Whyte to win a world title before his career comes to an end, yes or no?
Oh, God. Keeping it real. Got to keep it real. Do I think he beats an AJ or a Fury? AJ's got a chance. You have to ask me that fight after. Styles make fights, right? Styles make fights. I think he's got a better chance of beating AJ than he has of Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah? So you'll have to ask me after AJ and Fury do their stuff.
Okay.
You know? And at the same time, yeah, don't forget, and at the same time, Dillian's got to stay out of trouble. With the exception of the last Povetkin fight, he's just put a bit of tread on his bit of wear on his tires with those wars that he had with obviously Derek until he got rid of him. And Rivas, the Parker fight.
Yeah.
He's battle hardened. I wouldn't say it's tread, but he's battle hardened, and just got to hope that he's still got enough left in this period of inactivity, or whichever way he chooses to go about his career before he fights. Because we're hearing about him and Wilder, and Wilder knows that he needs that fight. Now, if I'm Dillian's manager, we're so close to maybe. He's already said the other day, I've beaten Povetkin, I should be mandatory, I should be fighting for the title. If you truly believe that, then you can't risk your mandatory status.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that means you've got to sit your ass down. You got to sit your ass down and do un-Dillian Whyte things, which is sit your ass down. That's the long-term module for you for now. And I'm just not sure if my guy, with the fighter that he is, with the gladiator that he is, I just don't think he can do that. And I think, the other night, it just sort of reiterated what I've always thought. Just like every other heavyweight, they love the big stage. That was a big stage for him. He had fans in the studio. He had fans in the stadium again, or the arena. And you want more of that. You want it quickly. But you being your own manager is a dangerous thing, because you need somebody to sit down. You need a Harold Knight to sit down and say, yo, bro, we're in a commanding position. Let's just sit down, let the Hergoviches and the Hunters and all the other up-and-coming guys that need to fight. I think the only way that he doesn't fight before these guys do their business will be that the WBC say it's a mandatory and he fights Wilder.
Yeah.
Cool, mate. That brother, if he has to fight Wilder for another mandatory, mate, just give him a shot straight away, man. Give him a shot straight away. He's been what I admire about him so much, just same as AJ, is what they've done in so little time. How much they've achieved in relatively such a short time of boxing in general, both amateur and pro. It's been nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, great stuff, Gary. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. The insight is amazing. And we'll get together again in the next few weeks, as long as you're not on the golf course.
Very soon. What do you think, Frampton and Herring?
If I had to pick, fight. I'd probably go for Herring.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Frampton's big enough for super featherweight, especially against a really tall, long super feather. But it wouldn't surprise me if Frampton won.
Yeah. I hope he does pull it off. But I think for him to beat somebody of those dimensions over 12 rounds, it would be a career performance. I really do. So I hope he does that. I really do.
We'll keep it all crossed. Cheers, Gary. I'll speak to you soon,
all right,
mate.
Take care.
And you. Bye-bye.
Bye.